If you love chilling Bigfoot encounters and mysterious creatures, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a new story. Shadows in the bush, the Yowie encounters of Australia. The ancient legends. Long before European settlers arrived in Australia, the Aboriginal people told stories of hairy men, tall, wild, and powerful beings that roamed the dense forests and mountains. That is, until the sightings began. (1849), a monster at Phillip Island. It was a crisp autumn morning when a group of early settlers in Victoria claimed they saw something they could never have prepared for. Near a still lake, half hidden by the dense reeds, a creature crouched, 7 feet tall, covered in thick, dark hair, and unlike anything known to science. The men, hardened by their rugged frontier life, froze. One of them, a hunter, raised his rifle. The crack of gunfire echoed across the water, but the creature moved faster than expected, disappearing into the underbrush with an eerie, guttural growl. When they rushed forward, there was no trace, no blood, no body, just the swaying of disturbed reeds and a lingering feeling of dread. The story spread quickly, but skeptics dismissed it as the ravings of frightened men. Yet deep in the Australian wilderness, something watched. Queensland's Springbrook National Park was a place of breathtaking beauty. Towering eucalyptus trees, winding trails, and deep valleys where few dared to venture at night. One evening, a group of schoolboys on an outing found themselves walking the trails as the sun dipped below the horizon. Among them was a young Bill O'Chee, a future senator, who would later recall this night as the moment he saw something that defied all logic. As they trudged along a narrow path, a towering, fur-covered figure emerged from the trees, silhouetted against the fading light. The boys stopped, unable to move. The creature was enormous, over 10 feet tall, its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Then it stepped forward, and the forest fell silent. For what felt like an eternity, the boys remained rooted in place, watching as this monstrous figure simply observed them. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it turned and vanished into the trees. O'Chee never forgot that night, and decades later he would tell the world that Yowies were real. Tim the Yowie Man, now one of Australia's most famous cryptid researchers, hadn't expected to have his own encounter. He was a skeptic, after all, until one freezing morning in the Brindabella Ranges. He had been hiking alone, the early mist swirling around his feet, when he heard something move behind him. The crunch of leaves, heavy breathing. Then, a low growl. He turned slowly, heart pounding, and locked eyes with a creature unlike any he had ever seen. Massive, covered in reddish-brown hair with an ape-like face and impossibly long arms, it stood barely 30 feet away. For a moment, man and beast simply watched each other. And then, it was gone, crashing through the trees with impossible speed. That was the moment Tim knew. The Yowie was more than just folklore. Technology had advanced, and so had the hunt for the Yowie. Two researchers, armed with infrared cameras, ventured deep into South Queensland's wilderness, determined to catch proof. After hours of scanning the thick bush, the camera picked up something, a figure, tall and broad, moving between the trees. It wasn't human. Its shape, its gait, the way it blended into the shadows, it was unlike anything they had seen before. The footage was later analyzed, debated, dismissed by skeptics, and hailed by believers. But the researchers knew what they had seen, and they weren't the only ones. (2021) Terror at Moore Park Beach. The quiet shores of Moore Park Beach weren't known for monster sightings, but for one terrified family, that changed in an instant. It was supposed to be a peaceful evening walk along the sand, the waves lapping gently at the shore. Then a deep, guttural roar shattered the night. They turned, and there it was. 9 feet tall with powerful arms and piercing eyes, the creature stood at the edge of the dunes. Then it moved toward them, The family ran, stumbling through the sand, barely making it back to their car. That night they couldn't sleep, because the howls came again, this time from the trees near their home. The next morning, they found the tracks, massive footprints pressed deep into the sand. "2025. A Chewbacca-sounding Yowie in Litchfield National Park." The latest reports come from the Northern Territory, where visitors to Litchfield National Park describe hearing sounds that weren't quite human, but weren't quite animal either. A deep, resonating noise, like something straight out of Star Wars, a sound eerily similar to Chewbacca. Some dismiss it as a trick of the wind, others as just another unexplained bush noise. But for those who have heard the stories of the Yowie, there is only one explanation. It's still out there, watching, waiting, and maybe, just maybe, ready to show itself again. Are the Yowies real? The stories keep coming. The footprints are still found. The sightings, year after year, refuse to stop. Some believe the Yowie is an undiscovered species, a relic from an ancient time, hidden in Australia's vast wilderness. Others say it's nothing more than mistaken identity, a myth passed down through generations. But for those who have seen it, for those who have locked eyes with the unknown in the deep forests of Australia, there is no question. The Yowie is real. More sightings of Bigfoot have been reported across various states in the United States. Each encounter adds another layer of mystery to this elusive creature. Memorial Weekend, May 1981, Pierce County, Washington. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine as 4 children set off from their campsite. The group, siblings and cousins, were restless after a morning of idling around the tents, and decided to explore the creek that wound its way through the dense Washington forest. The sun filtered through the towering trees, casting shifting patterns of gold and green onto the forest floor. The creek babbled beside them, its waters shallow and clear, reflecting the tangled branches overhead. They followed a narrow dirt path along the northern side of the creek, the occasional rustle of underbrush, or the distant trill of a bird, the only sounds that accompanied them. It was peaceful, at first. Then came the rustling. At first they barely noticed it, a gentle shifting of leaves across the water, easy to blame on a breeze or a squirrel darting through the foliage. But as they continued walking upstream, the sound persisted, a steady, deliberate movement. They paused, straining their ears. The rustling stopped. One of them, probably the eldest, shrugged it off. Just an animal, they thought. Still, something felt off. They pressed on, glancing occasionally across the water. Then through the thick curtain of wild rose and ferns, a face emerged. It was there, just for a moment, a flash of reddish-brown, tangled hair, large golden-brown eyes that gleamed in the shifting sunlight. Then it was gone, swallowed again by the foliage. A stunned silence fell over them. "Did you see that?" someone whispered, but no one spoke. The fear in their eyes was answer enough. They moved faster now, stepping lightly over the damp earth, every muscle tensed. Another 100 yards, and the face appeared again, watching, observing, not chasing, not threatening, but keeping pace. Then another thought struck them. The creek ended ahead in a marsh. If they kept going, they wouldn't have the water between them and whatever was in the bushes. Panic set in. Without a word, they turned and ran, feet pounding against the ground, branches whipping at their arms as they hurtled back toward camp. The rustling grew distant behind them, but they didn't slow down until they burst through the tree line and into the safety of the tents. Gasping for breath, they spilled out the story to their parents, expecting to be dismissed, to be laughed at for their wild imagination. But there was no ridicule, only quiet, serious nods. They weren't the only ones who had seen something that weekend. When they returned home, newspapers from the past few days confirmed it. Others had reported a sighting near Alder Lake. Something had been watching them in the woods that day, and it wasn't alone. July 15th, 1982, Pierce County, Washington. The trip to Mount Rainier had started off as an exciting summer adventure. 13-year-old me, my mom, and I had traveled from Michigan to visit my sister in Snohomish, Washington for 2 weeks. She had planned a special day trip for us to see the famous ice caves and a mysterious wooden carving deep in the forest called the Maiden in the Woods. That morning we all piled into the car. Mom, my sister, my brother-in-law, my 2 nephews, ages 5 and 7, and me, and set off. The drive took us through the Washington countryside, a patchwork of lush valleys and farm fields. I noticed something strange as we passed through. Large wooden silhouettes standing in the fields shaped like tall, hairy figures. They reminded me of those decorative bear cutouts people place in their yards, except these were far larger, 7 or 8 feet tall. I leaned forward. "What are those supposed to be?" I asked. My brother-in-law chuckled. "Oh, the farmers put those out to ward off Sasquatch," he said. I laughed nervously, expecting him to be joking. But as we kept driving, I realized every farm had at least one, standing tall, facing the forest as if warning something away. Something about it unsettled me. These weren't decorations. They were there for a reason. Into the woods. We finally reached an overlooked parking area somewhere deep in the foothills of the mountains. My sister said the Maiden in the Woods was a carving made from an ancient redwood pine. It was supposed to be incredible, and she was excited for us to see it. We set off up the trail, sunlight dappling the forest floor as we climbed. When we reached the carving, though, disappointment set in. The Maiden had been vandalized, burned, and damaged beyond recognition. My sister sighed, shaking her head. It used to be beautiful. With nothing left to admire, we turned back toward the car. It was early afternoon, the sun still bright overhead. My nephews ran ahead laughing while Mom and my sister followed behind them. My brother-in-law and I lingered near the back of the group, walking at a slower pace. That's when he froze. He held out an arm, motioning for me to stop. I did. "What is it?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes narrowed, scanning the woods. "Just listen." I frowned but did as he said. The forest was mostly quiet except for the sound of something moving through the trees. A heavy step, a crunching branch, the soft thud of something sinking into the forest bed. It was keeping pace with us. We started walking again, our footsteps deliberately slow. The sound in the woods matched us, never getting closer, never falling behind. We stopped. It stopped. A sudden wave of unease spread through me. My brother-in-law looked at me, eyes serious. He knew I had heard it too. Up ahead, my mom and sister noticed we had stopped and turned around. "What are you guys doing? Come on, let's get going." My brother-in-law hesitated, then said, "I think we're being followed." My mom scoffed. "By what? One of those Sasquatch things from the farms?" She laughed until she saw our faces. "Yeah, just listen." We took a few more steps forward. Crunch. Thud. The footsteps in the woods started again. This time my mom's face went pale. My nephews had stopped laughing, suddenly aware that something wasn't right. That's when we heard the howl. The sound came from our right, deep within the dense trees. It started low like a wolf's howl, but it wasn't a wolf. It had a dual-tone quality, almost as if 2 voices were calling out at once, one deep and resonant, the other slightly higher, echoing through the trees. The sound vibrated through my chest, sending shivers down my spine. For a moment, none of us moved. Then my brother-in-law hissed, "Let's get walking, people!" We didn't walk. We ran. My nephews screamed as they bolted down the trail. My mom and sister weren't far behind. I didn't dare look over my shoulder. I didn't want to see what was making that noise. We burst out of the trees, reaching the car in record time. My brother-in-law fumbled for the keys, yanking the door open as we piled in, breathless and panicked. The moment the engine roared to life, he slammed it into reverse, kicking up dust as we tore out of the parking area. Even as we sped down the winding mountain roads, no one spoke for a while. The forest had gone silent, as if the thing that had been following us knew we were gone. Years later, when I listened to recorded Bigfoot vocalizations, something about them sent chills up my spine. The howl we heard that day in 1982, it was the same. The Footprints in the Wild. August 15, 1982, Pierce County, Washington. The Huckleberry Creek Training Ground was a remote, rugged expanse of wilderness, deep in the foothills of Mount Rainier National Park. It was the kind of place that tested a soldier's endurance, pushing them to their limits both physically and mentally. That summer, my squad from A Company 15th Engineer Battalion had been sent there for mountain training, a crucial component of our preparation at Fort Lewis. The final test of our training was called the Alpine Scramble, a grueling land navigation exercise designed to simulate real-world survival scenarios. The goal was simple: travel from point A to point B, solving various problems along the way. It was a test of our ability to navigate treacherous terrain, adapt to unforeseen obstacles, and work as a team under pressure. By the time mid-afternoon arrived, our squad had been hiking for hours. The overcast sky cast a dull gray light over the forest, the thick canopy overhead filtering what little sun remained. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and pine, and though it hadn't rained yet, the promise of it lingered. We finally came upon a stream, its waters rushing steadily over a rocky bed. It was the perfect place to rest and refuel, so we took off our packs and gathered near a sand and gravel bar that jutted out into the stream. Some of us knelt by the water, splashing our faces and filling canteens, while others tore into their field rations. Then someone noticed the prints. A discovery in the sand. At first, they seemed like nothing more than odd depressions in the gravel. But as we looked closer, the reality of what we were seeing began to sink in. The footprints were large, 14 inches long and 7.5 inches wide, far broader than any human foot we had ever seen. They pressed deep into the soil, far deeper than our own boot prints, even when we stomped down hard. This has to be a joke. But as we continued to study the tracks, the details became harder to dismiss. The stride between each print was at least 4 feet, much longer than any of ours. We even pulled out a tape measure to confirm it. Whoever, or whatever, had made them, had been moving with deliberate, steady steps. We followed the prints along the edge of the stream, tracing them as far as we could. Every now and then, a faint, partial print would appear, but after a short distance, they vanished. Had whatever made them stepped into the stream, or had it turned and disappeared into the forest? We had no way of knowing. That's when our instructor, a seasoned ranger cadre, leaned forward, his face unreadable. "Forget about it. Don't mention it again." His voice left no room for argument. That was the end of the conversation. No discussion, no speculation, just an unspoken agreement to let it go. But I never did. A lingering mystery. I left the army not long after, but that day never left me. I began reading about Bigfoot sightings, digging through books and online reports, trying to find anything similar to what we had seen. I never found another account that matched ours exactly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that what we stumbled upon that day at Huckleberry Creek was something real. Something that someone didn't want us talking about. Because I can tell you this, those weren't boot prints. Face to face with the unknown. May 11th, 1983. Puyallup, Washington. The logging road was overgrown, its path cracked and softened by years of neglect. Spring had come to South Hill, Puyallup, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming weeds. My friend and I, 2 elementary school kids, were making our usual trek home from Sunrise Elementary. It was a shortcut, one we had taken dozens of times before, cutting through a patch of woods nestled between gravel pits and power lines. We weren't in any hurry that afternoon. The sun hung bright and low, casting long shadows across the narrow path. Both of us carried sticks, swiping at the tall dandelions lining the trail, chopping them down like tiny warriors. My friend walked ahead, swinging at anything in his reach, while I lagged behind, taking care of the ones he missed. 20 feet separated us, but I didn't mind. That's when it happened. I had stopped for a particularly large patch of dandelions, focused on my stick as I hacked away at the stalks. Behind me, the ditch ran parallel to the path, a shallow trench overgrown with weeds and brush. Then came the feeling, a strange, unmistakable sensation, like someone was standing behind me, watching. Every hair on my arm stood up. My breath hitched. Slowly I turned around. I froze. Standing no more than 8 feet away, rising up from the ditch, was a massive figure covered in thick, reddish hair. My brain barely had time to register what I was looking at before sheer terror took over. It was so close, so unnervingly human, yet not human at all. Its shoulders were impossibly wide, its hair slightly matted, almost the same shade as an Irish setter's fur. The eyes were dark, or at least they looked that way. I didn't stare long enough to be sure. For a split second, we just stared at each other. Then I ran. I didn't think, I didn't hesitate. I just bolted down the path, sprinting past my friend without stopping. "What's wrong? Run!" Without questioning me, he took off right behind me. We ran and never looked back. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but we didn't stop until we reached home. It never chased us. It didn't need to. Even after slamming the door behind us, I couldn't catch my breath. My friend kept asking what I had seen, but I couldn't even find the words. That day changed me. Since then, I've read everything I could about Bigfoot sightings, searching for others like mine. And what I've come to understand is this. They are out there. I don't need proof. I already know. The Watcher in the Riverbed, May 1st, 2001, Fairfax, Washington. The afternoon was perfect. A crisp, clear spring day in the Carbon River Valley with blue skies stretching wide over the rugged foothills of Mount Rainier. My wife and I had spent the day riding bikes through the back roads with our 5-year-old daughter, weaving through the thick pine forests that had reclaimed the old logging roads. The ride had been peaceful, filled with nothing but the hum of tires on dirt and the occasional birdsong filtering through the trees. As we neared the end of our ride, we stopped at a high viewpoint overlooking the river valley below. It was one of those spots where the land suddenly drops away, revealing a breathtaking sprawl of riverbed, dense tree lines, and the jagged boulders lining the Carbon River. We stood still, just taking it all in, our bikes propped against a fallen log. The river wound through the valley, its surface glinting in the sunlight. The place had an untouched quality, as if the rest of the world had forgotten it. That's when we saw him. The man in the trench coat. At first, it was nothing more than a figure, moving along the rock-strewn riverbed far below us. My first thought was a man, maybe a fisherman, making his way along the water's edge. But something felt off. The way he moved, it wasn't normal. He strode effortlessly across the uneven terrain, stepping from boulder to boulder with an unnatural grace. No hesitation, no missteps. It was too smooth, like he was walking on a sidewalk instead of jagged river rocks. Then I noticed something even stranger. At first I thought he was wearing a long trench coat. That was the only way my brain could explain the dark shape I was seeing. But then I realized there were no folds, no fabric, no sleeves, just solid dark hair. Not a man. I blinked, looked again. There were no shoes, no cuffs. His arms swung long and natural, and the dark hair extended all the way to his fingertips. The so-called coat was actually his body. A rush of realization hit me all at once. That's not a man. Only 2 seconds had passed since we first noticed him, but it felt much longer. I turned to my wife, and at the exact same moment, she turned to look at me. Neither of us spoke, but we could see the same thought in each other's eyes. "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" We turned back, just in time to watch him turn his head sharply toward us. It wasn't a casual glance, it wasn't slow, it was instant. Like he knew we were there the moment we questioned it. His dark eyes locked onto mine. He held my gaze. There was intelligence there. Something deep and aware. Not just an animal catching movement. He was looking at me, studying me, and all the while he kept walking. I felt my breath catch in my throat. Then he vanished behind a stand of thick pine trees that lined the river's edge. The moment he was gone, I turned to my wife. "I think it's time to go." Yep, we didn't hesitate. We grabbed our bikes and took off, pedaling hard up the winding dirt road that led back to our car. My daughter, oblivious to what had just happened, laughed as she bounced along in her bike seat. Neither of us spoke the entire way back. It wasn't fear exactly. It was something else. That deep feeling that you've just experienced something you weren't supposed to. That moment, those few short seconds, stuck with me. Even now, 5 years later, I can still see his eyes, and I still wonder how he knew we were watching. What do you think? Are these just campfire tales, or could something truly be out there in the wilds of Australia and the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest? With countless reports spanning decades, from the rugged mountains of Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia to the remote bushlands of Queensland and Victoria, the mystery only deepens. Thanks for visiting.